you and I have known each other for a long time, and
Yeah,
our projects are pretty similar. And it's been really interesting, I think, because we've never actually talked about our work publicly with anyone else around, right?
right. Yeah,
So
so we've met up a number of times, and we get to chat really deeply about the stuff we're doing and our plans and all of that, but definitely never with an audience.
yeah. So if you're tuning in from Instagram Live, you can join us on the Zoom call that we're on. If you see us looking in a different direction, it's because we're watching each other on a different screen. But feel free to listen in. We're going to be talking about creativity and how Brandon started his project. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to dive in. So do you remember when we first met?
I do. I think it was at Williamsburg Walks, if I remember correctly, and you came up and introduced yourself. And I had not seen your work in person because I was touring at the time, but I had definitely seen it on the internet. And so, yeah, you came up and introduced yourself and told me about it, and I was super excited to connect with you. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so. So we met at this art walk in Williamsburg, but the first time that I ever saw your project was probably, I don't know, maybe like 6 months before that, or maybe even more. And seeing the
Uh-huh.
Strangers Project in person, for anybody that's not familiar, the Strangers Project is this really, really fantastic participatory public artwork that Brandon started over 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2009. So
Do you did you by any chance I can go on your website and we can screen share that, or I can show, do you have some images maybe that you can show people?
I do. Let's see. I'm
Sweet.
actually pretty new to Zoom, so bear with me as I make
Okay,
mistakes
cool.
here.
That's
Am I
all good.
screen sharing? No.
If you're on Instagram Live, Brandon you are screen sharing right now.
Oh,
Brandon's
great.
going to be screen sharing a bunch of images, or some images, and we'll be doing some different screen sharing stuff. So if you hear us talking about a screen share or looking at images or talking about stuff, that's where you can check that out, and you can click the link in the bio to join the Zoom call. Yeah, so I think this might have been the same day. When was this? This might
Yep.
have been the day that we met.
Yep, it is. Or I'm pretty sure it is. So yeah, this was Williamsburg Walks, which is an event where they just shut down a big chunk of Bedford in Brooklyn, and there's a bunch of art stuff going on and vendors and all kinds of different stuff. And I've done those a number of years in a row. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the exact specific day that we had met. And also, wow, isn't it bizarre looking at all those people like next to each other?
Yeah. I've been thinking since this whole um, coronavirus thing started that it's really, really weird to look at pictures of people um, that are in big groups, or even when I see
Yeah,
hugging, it's really, really strange.
yeah, I've been
It gives me a weird
watching
feeling.
a lot of Netflix and whatnot, and it feels weird every time people interact.
I wonder if other people are feeling the same way. Um, but yeah, so you do stuff like this, and then do you have a picture of what you do in Washington Square Park?
Yeah, let's see.
Are these like the best of
There we go.
images? You can just take us through.
Just a series. So this is the most normal version. Is Washington Square Park. It's my go-to spot. I'll set up in the afternoon or early evening, and then stay out there for anywhere from 6 to sometimes 12 hours, just sharing and collecting stories.
Cool. This is something that I think the first time that I ever saw Strangers Project, it was in one of your installations in Washington Square Park. And it's interesting because I'm really interested in participatory stuff, and I do participatory work. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I like had a bunch of ideas, but then I didn't do it. And I find that to be sort of, I guess it's ironic. I don't know. I just, um, I'm just such a big fan. And in that moment, wait, where is that? It was in a bookstore?
Yeah, this was Powerhouse Arena in Dumbo at their
Okay.
old location.
Powerhouse
What's
Arena.
really
That
great is
sounds
it can fit in just any kind of space.
right.
It can be outside, inside, small little wall, huge walls, really anywhere that there's space and people.
Right. Yeah, so I do a project with sticky notes called Subway Therapy for those of you that might be unfamiliar. And it's similar in that you don't need a lot of space. You just need people and people writing and a place for them to write. And I think it's a strength for me. And I think for you, it's the same way. Like, it's just so awesome that you can pretty much take it anywhere and put it up. And because it captures people's stories and their expression, it it's powerful wherever it is, even if you don't have a lot of space.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've always tried to make it very invitational in a sense that it's just something that's meant to sort of spark curiosity and people can come up and explore it at their own pace. So I'm never walking up to people with clipboards being like, hey, come write something. I'm not telling, instructing people to come look at this thing. It's more so doesn't really look like a lot of other things that are out there, and it's easy to just kind of approach and explore it. And some people will come up and like ask me questions right away. Some people will just start reading.
Hmm.
Some people will watch it from a distance for a long time, just kind of like making sure it's a safe thing. And as they see other people coming and going and all of that, then they'll finally come check it out. But I always want it to be just a very open and sort of safe space for people to explore and experience whatever experience they're going to have.
Totally. Um, I'm wondering, so
Oh,
this is
hold on. I
all
lost my audio.
okay.
Okay, I'm back. Siri
All
got
right.
activated. Oh,
Okay.
and she goes
So
again.
one of the amazing parts about your project is that it's in person and that people get to participate. Uh, they just might be walking by and then they're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I want to check this out," and then they do that. How has uh, COVID-19 affected your work? Like, what are you doing now?
Yeah, it's obviously very affected. It's my project exists in the real world. There's in the past no online submissions, nothing mailed in, so I've had the chance to meet all 60,000 plus people that have shared stories. Um, I have had an online component to it where you can read stories and explore there, and I love the Strangers Project community, especially on Instagram. But the heart of the project and the core of it is really in real space. So this is definitely a difficult transition, um, but I am trying to find ways to bring this experience online in a stronger way than I have in the past. Before I was using the online portion of it in two ways, basically to share a selection of stories and then also just to connect with community members. But now
Hmm.
I'm going to really be exploring just bigger things to do online.
Sure. Is there something that you're doing online that people can participate in now?
Yeah, so I'm doing just a whole bunch of different experiments. None of them, because this is all happening in real time, so none of these are super planned out, and it's kind of seeing what's working and what's not working. I'm hopefully launching the end of this week, fingers crossed, virtual story walls, and that's
Cool.
going to be bringing the same similar experience to when you're out in public of the exploration aspect of the stories.
Sure.
So one of the biggest downsides of social media for the project is I never really liked having the stories chronological. I post a story every day or sometimes more than once a day. But when you find the story walls, you're kind of exploring, and everyone has a different experience. They'll be drawn to different stories where they start. Some people will read straight across the rows. Some people will just jump around to different handwritings that catch their eye. And so everyone kind of has a unique experience, and you're also consuming a bunch of stories at once and kind of seeing the different relationships between them. Sorry, Siri keeps getting activated and it cuts out my audio. Um,
Siri, what are you doing?
so I don't
Get
know.
out of
It's
here.
crazy. So with the virtual story walls, this is going to get a little technical, but I'll try to keep it simple. It's going to be using the Google Maps API, which essentially means it'll be just like you use on Google Maps, where you can click and scroll and zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to be creating these walls with, I'm not sure how many for each one, maybe 100 stories. And it'll be a similar experience to as in the exhibitions, because you can go and just kind of really get in there and see the handwriting and explore a bunch of stories at once. And then I'll hopefully, if it seems like people are enjoying it, I'll release a new story wall with like 100 new stories every week or something like that.
That'd be awesome.
But then I'm also playing with audio. I did something last week where I'm having people essentially call in or send me voice memos of them reading stories that have resonated with them over the years. And I'm going to hopefully be playing with video with that as well, so you can actually still see the original handwriting.
Cool.
And that's something people can do right now, is just sort of call in and read stories.
Is there a number that people can call in on?
Yes, there's
What's
a
that?
recent post on my, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there's a recent post on my feed that has, you can either just email a voice memo or you can call it and just leave a voicemail.
Cool. So check that out, because I mean, I think it would be super cool if people could be reading all of these stories, and they're super powerful and interesting. And so that seems like a really cool thing to have. Have you thought about, you haven't done a podcast, right?
No, so it's something I've thought about a lot over the years and toyed with and wanted to explore. I've never quite found the right way to do it.
Hmm.
Um, there's either other things that are similar enough that I feel like I don't need to add something to that space, or then other options are just a little bit too far from what I'm doing with the project. So it is something I want to do. I just haven't quite found the right way to do it.
Got it. Got it. I'm wondering, aside from working on Strangers Project, do you do other things that are creative? I know that you and I, when we hang out, we talk a lot about our participatory works. Like I'm like, sticky notes. We're talking about stories
Yeah.
and like the different um, ways to make different spaces work. And so I think that the work that we do is super creative. But are there small things that you do every day that are not Strangers Project, or is it like all Strangers Project all the time?
It's a lot of strangers projects. I would say mostly, but no, I've, photography and video are both hobbies of mine. Um, I used to write a lot more. I want to start writing again. It was my major, but I ebb and flow in how much I'm doing that in my real life. Um, as the strangers project has become a full-time thing, it's also been pretty consuming of just my time. Like I always feel like I have a to-do list that's just ever growing for the project. So a lot of the energy goes there, but I'm hoping to explore other things during this time as well.
Sweet. I just want to update anyone that's watching that if you want to join our Zoom call, you can. There's link in bios at both at Strangers Project and at Subway Therapy. You can join us on the call, and we're going to be entering into like a Q&A section. So if you want to use the question sticker at the bottom of your Instagram live feed, you can ask questions now, and then we're going to start answering them as we go. So feel free to do that. It'd be really cool. Or if you're on Zoom, enter any questions into the chat. And we'll also have a time when we unmute the mics and people can jump on. So feel free to join the Zoom call. The link is in the bio on both of our accounts. Something I was curious about, can you talk a little bit about how this started? Like you've been doing it for 10 years, but what was like the first time? Okay, let's say people inside right now are looking for how to take their inclinations and then turn them into something. Maybe they're feeling creative or stifled by being inside. They have these dreams that they want to accomplish in a variety of different ways and aren't really sure how to get there. It's like, what was the first time that you thought, this is like a thing I want to do? And what was like the first baby step you did to get there?
Yeah. So um, the beginning of this whole thing was essentially an experiment. I didn't have a big plan for what it was going to be. I, in the beginning, really just thought it was going to be like a 1 day thing and then a 1 week thing. And, here we are 10 years later. But it's not the first thing I've tried. So I started this right out of undergrad. It was my first summer after finishing school. And I had toyed with a lot of different ways for people to sort of interact and, again, participatory art type stuff. Like I did a project called After the Beep when I was an undergrad. And it was kind of similar to what I'm doing now. with the call-in stuff, but I set up a Google Voice number and I encourage people just to call and share anything they want to share. And then I posted like flyers all around the campus. And it was the same thing where it was a dedicated number where people could just, it would go straight to voicemail and it would just record whatever they had to say.
Hmm.
I had a few dozen people do it. It wasn't huge. I didn't really end up sharing them anywhere just because it was a super local, small little thing. But just, I use that as an example of, there were things in the similar vein of what the Strangers Project became that I had already been toying with. But as far as the start of the project itself, I literally just took a marker in my notebook and I wrote, "Hi there, I'm collecting your stories. Please stop and share." Propped it up on a table. Just two women were walking by and they saw my sign and asked me what I was doing. I said, "I don't know yet, but do you want to write something about your life?" And they sat and wrote, and then other people came to write, and 60,000 stories later.
That's so crazy. And
But I
if
do
you don't
get,
mind,
a lot of, like you're saying, oh, sorry.
no, I'll say, if you don't mind me asking, like, what was your
Yeah.
startup cost? Like, how, like, do you have like a number in your head where you're like, I spent $50 on that table?
Yeah. Um, None in the beginning because I just used the notebook that I was already writing in,
That's awesome.
and a Sharpie that I had. So technically $0 on the first day. And
So just go for it.
I encourage people, I have a lot of people nowadays that come to me and say they want to start some kind of project, whether it's similar to this or just any kind of project. And I really, really encourage people just to experiment and just like, if you want to make something, go out and do it. If I would have tried to plan what the project is today, and if I would have waited until I had that figured out, the project wouldn't be here. All the best parts of it came from just going out there and doing it, the literally thousands of times that I've gone out to collect stories now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It didn't take me a lot to get started, and then similar setup. I had like a table, two chairs, people could sit down, and I thought I would collect secrets and people could write secrets. And then that just like, I just kept doing it. And I think when my project went viral in 2016, I'd probably spent less than, I think I'd spent less than like $60 to do
Mm-hmm.
it. And then, that got me my book deal and like a bunch of different stuff. And I don't know if you've had that same experience, but something that I want people to take away from, like, at least, my experience, and I think yours too, is to start something, you really don't need a whole lot.
No,
Um,
absolutely not.
Paper, pencils, an idea. I mean, I think the idea is the most important part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a number of people, and this also just might be part of it because it's just not my style to work this way. But I've had people send me emails with their like proposals that they want me to look over of their project that they're going to start. And sometimes, and I think that's great for people that are good at planning and all that. But sometimes it's like a 10-page document with like all these super, super planned out things, but they haven't started any of it yet. And then just a lot of times, most of that isn't going to end up mattering. Like, if
Hmm.
you want to prepare and think about it, that's pretty good. But if it keeps you from actually starting, then I don't think that's effective.
Do you think that's something that's unique to participatory work or public art, where like the more you plan, the more you might get foiled by just the wiles of public space? Like you can plan
Yeah.
something out and then have it just not work at all. But if you don't plan it out that much when you go out, maybe I'm answering my own question here. Like that's my experience. Do you think that's true for public space more so than other arenas?
um, Probably, I know I can speak most to the public work because that's what I do most. But yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
You're going to get more experience and figure out more of what you're doing in the first like 20 minutes that you're doing it than you will with hours and hours of planning it.
Right, right, right. If anybody wants to ask any questions, feel free to do so. If you're in the chat and you want to unmic yourself and say hi and be part of the conversation, you can do that. And if you are on Instagram Live and you want to ask a question, you can just do it in the comments, or you can use the question sticker and we'll throw it up. I don't see any questions that have come in yet, but you can ask about participatory public art. You could ask about starting stuff from scratch. You can ask about books. Both of us have published books at this point. So,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to make a book?
Yeah, you can actually see it here.
We're going to do more screen share stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do for Instagram Live is I'm going to switch my screen around so you can see what we're looking at.
So I actually don't own any copies of my own book, but if you look in the background there, you can see it. It's called What's Your Story? Um, it is a collection of 200 stories, just like you see uh, online. You know, it's got all the original handwriting. It came out in 2015. I really loved doing the book. It was an awesome experience, but it's not necessarily my favorite medium for the project, just because a lot of people will say, like, oh, are these the 200 best stories? And it's not. It's 200 stories out of 60,000. Like, it's just a sampling of them. So I like doing it, but it also feels kind of limited. I really like the exhibitions and the Instagram account and everything, just because I get to show new stories all the time, and there's just always something new to share.
Cool. Any more pictures you want to show us of the project? There's new people on Instagram Live here, even if you want to
Yeah,
just
we can
go
just go
back
through
through
some. These are just
and
random.
while you're showing
This
us
is
some
at a place.
pictures. Sorry.
This is Fountain House Gallery, place I do a lot of indoor installations.
So AJ Shapiro 19 asks, is there anyone you really wish you could respond to? And what do you do in that case?
Yeah, so anyone here that's read these stories will know that some of them are sometimes very heavy stories. And I certainly do in those moments. You know, I want to connect with everybody, but the stories are themselves anonymous. That's always been a big part of it. You know, I wanted people to have a safe space to share things that they might not have shared otherwise. Thankfully, a lot of these people are now joined in on the community online. So
Hmm.
even though the stories themselves are anonymous, I think most people that write one go on to follow somewhere online, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook. And so it's been really, I've had so many people who will either just show up in the comments after they see their story posted, or
Hmm.
just message me directly if they don't want to reveal themselves, but talk about what an incredible experience it was to read everybody else's reactions and see all the wonderful comments that people share. Um, so yeah, long story short, I have had that desire, but I also very much always want to make sure they're anonymous unless they choose to reveal themselves. And I use this anecdote a lot, but I really early on in the project, I used to collect just in these blank notebooks instead of individual sheets of paper. And so I would literally be sitting across from the person that was writing, and I would just be doing work on my laptop, and they would sit and write, and I would not read them while they were like right when they finished, just to help maintain the anonymity. But I would read them that evening when I got home. And really early on, uh, it's probably the first summer that I was doing it, and I read one of the stories, and it was essentially a suicide note. This girl said that she
Hmm.
was not even just suicidal ideation, but she said she was literally on her way to end her life after writing this.
Whoa.
And it tore me apart. I didn't know specifically which person it was. I knew that I had been sitting just a few feet from her hours earlier, and it really freaked me out. I didn't have the emotional tools that I've since built, you know, doing this project for the past 10 years. And
Whoa.
I didn't even have a website or social media for the project at that point. So it wasn't even like I could reach out there.
Right.
Thankfully, in this situation, she emailed me a couple days later, and she said,
Whoa.
first, I want you to know that I'm okay. And secondly, having somewhere to share that saved my life that night.
Oh my
So
gosh.
even
Wow.
when there's like really, really heavy stories, I always like to keep that sort of idea in mind, that it was probably good that they had a space to share it and somebody else might be able to connect with it. I don't think there's ever a downside to people having a space to share something that might have been stuck inside of them.
Whoa. Um, if you cool. If you don't mind stopping your screen share, let's jump back
Yeah.
to some stuff because I wanted to ask you about um something there. So you talked a little bit about not having emotional tools or being able to like hold a container for somebody. And I know that in therapy and in other realms, it's like really, really important that you hold space for people. And I'm going to show a couple of pictures of my stuff in a little bit so that people can see mine as well, especially talking about this, because a lot of people ask me, I do a project called Subway Therapy where I do projects with sticky notes, but also I started out pretending to be a therapist and going into the subway, and I would give people therapy that were just walking by. And so I had done a lot of different things in education and in leadership and different creative things. And so I sort of ended up, I'm not a therapist, but I ended up having some of the emotional tools so that I could deal with things that came around. Um, what set you up to have the emotional tools? And I know we're saying that other people should do this, but how can people be prepared for some of that stuff? Like, is just being ready enough, or do you need to prepare yourself in some other way?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I have a definitive answer to this one. For me, it was just came along with the experience of meeting now hundreds of thousands of people, and it was just something I had to figure out how to process and deal with. There was
Mm,
no specific like resource that I used or anything like that. I think it was just kind of came along the way. It is something people that want to do this kind of work, I think, do need to figure out whether it's through experience or through another specific resource. I have a lot of people who want to like do strangers project chapters in their own cities and stuff, and it's something I've wanted to explore and hopefully will someday when the world returns to normal. But it's also, I need to make sure that these people understand all the kind of interactions that people are going to have, because all of my
right.
interactions aren't necessarily positive or easy. um,
Mm,
and I'm sure you deal with that too, in
yeah.
public space. When you open up your work to the public, you are going to get the public, and that
Yeah, for
includes
sure.
all types of interactions.
And uh, as a good segue, I'm going to show a little bit of what I do so that people can see, and I'm going to try and figure out. I think I'm going to be able to do this well. Let's see. I'm so. Let's do this. So this is Subway Therapy, and I'm going to screen share here on Zoom. Whoops. Zoom. Where's my Zoom? This is us on the Zoom call. If you guys want to join, you totally should. I'm going to screen share this Finder window. Okay. So this is Subway Therapy. This is a project that I did with sticky notes where people could write in secrets. So they could come up. It would be a table that you can see with pens and different things like that. People could just write whatever they wanted to write. This is a video of that. Let's see. This is a project I did for the International Day of Happiness, which is on March 20th. This is in New York, but I always try and go to a different place in public space. This year, unfortunately, I was super bummed because this whole virus thing happened, and I was supposed to go to Dubai and work with an awesome artist there to bring it to an art space, and then I just didn't get a chance to do it, which was like a super bummer, but it's all good. That's life. What are you going to do? Um, let's bring up, sometimes I'll organize things beforehand and do things like this. This was on Pride. I just did, what are you proud of? And I put sticky notes up, and pretty much every time I do these projects, immediately people are writing right after I put them up. And so that's been really, really fun. And, you probably know this, but public space is one of those, it's just astonishing that people are so willing to participate in public space. Um, Anywhere that I've been in the world, this is Berlin. Where are we? This is Berlin. Um, and that was super fun. This was Malmo in Sweden. And just every time I go out for several days, at least a few thousand people participate. And I'm just always so like blown away by the things that people say. And some of these that I'm showing now are from um, I think this was a elementary school. It was like a fifth or a sixth grade classroom that I was at. Um, and then this is how it used to look. So I used to sit at the table and have people come up and chat with me. And then when I started using sticky notes, it evolved. But yeah, I miss the conversations actually, because there used to be no sticky notes, and just talking to people
Yeah,
was
just the
like one of the
table.
funnest things to be a part of. I bet you talk to a lot of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So every time I set up a story wall, I'm at a little table right next to it. And kind of like we were saying earlier, I do try to let people interact with the space at their own pace. So, I've actually considered in the past if I should introduce myself more during the project every now and then. It's kind of hard though, because everyone is in a different spot in how they're interacting with it. Like some people have been there for 2 seconds and don't know what it is yet. Some people are in the middle of a super heavy story. Like, so it
Yeah.
always felt weird to be like, hey, everybody, I'm Brandon. This is the Strangers Project.
Right, right, right.
So I generally let them approach me if they have questions, or if somebody looks really confused and they look like they're trying to figure out what it is, I'll be like, oh, hey, are you familiar with the project?
Right.
But I generally leave it up to people to uh, choose if they want to chat with me or not. But yeah, every night that I go out, especially here in New York, I'll interact with hundreds to sometimes thousands of people.
So I'm not sure. I think this is Ank Dank. Is that what it is? Onk Donk? I'm not sure. Someone on Instagram Live has written a question, and it's actually one that I'm super fascinated to answer. So she writes, "Are you both working alone on your projects, or how many people are working with you on your project?"
Yeah, the Strangers Project is 99% a solo run operation. I do have some really wonderful people that help out often. One of them is on the Zoom call here. That's Jackie. She is now a friend, but was originally just a visitor to the project and then started asking if I need help doing things. So whether it's in the park or sometimes during installations, Jackie will usually show up. And if I need to take a break, she knows the project well enough that she can watch the space for a few minutes. Matthew, you've helped me a bunch, whether it's helping me introduce stuff during an installation or swinging by to help set up when it's super windy. But other than that, generally it's a solo run thing other than little bits and pieces. What's really cool though is at Washington Square Park, especially because it's such a common space for me, there's a lot of just visitors who will come through and who are also regulars who maybe live by there, and they'll see me right when I'm arriving. They'll be like, "Oh, do you need help setting up today?" And then so they'll help me set up. So it's
Yeah,
nothing
that's awesome.
official, but it has been cool having this kind of like ad hoc network of people that just want to help out.
Sure. Um, I see another question that's sort of related to the like helping. Oh, and to answer the question for me, subway therapy is also a solo project. It's just something that I do um, for the vast majority of the time by myself. Every once in a while, people will come and volunteer because they've reached out to me saying, "Hey, I'd like to do it." But yeah, both Brandon and I, and we talk about this a lot, are solo artists. And while it looks like the things that we've created are made by larger entities, we're all solo. I know, Brandon, you have a Patreon. I don't have a Patreon that's set up, but if anybody wants to donate or participate or volunteer in some way, check out both of our websites, subwaytherapy.com or strangersproject.com. They're, the help that we get from other people, we never ask for, but it's really, really nice when people do. Um, at least we never ask for in public space, because I want people to do stuff for free and not think that they, need to donate. But it's also part of being an artist that it's okay to ask. Um, and I know we always shy away from it, but if you feel like donating or want to help out, you totally can. Um, Nindy said, I'm going to botch this, but let me give the question. Nindy asks, or Nindio asks, what's the most struggling part of creating an exhibition?
It's a good question. I would have multiple answers for this. So one is like the practical side of it is just it physically can be difficult to run this project. Again, running this solo, these story walls that you see and everything, that's carrying it from my apartment in Brooklyn every time I set up, bringing it on the train, going out there, setting it up, and then standing for 12 hours, interacting with people, then deinstalling it, taking it all down, carrying it
Mm.
back. And that stuff is heavy. Um, so that's like a physical challenge with all of this. And then also, just the emotional toll that we were talking about before. It's something I really love doing, but it's also, I meet all of these people and I read all these stories, and it can be difficult sometimes when people are sharing the harder parts of their experience on this planet. So it's a challenge, but it's one that I love doing.
Yeah, I wanted to quick point out a comment that Flex and Fly official made. Thanks for being here, by the way, and for being a big fan. But one of your comments is that I consider you guys modern day healers. And I have to say that part of the reason that I started this project was to help people feel better about the stuff that they feel bad about. And that was like a really loose framework for starting this. But I think that more people should think about what they can do and then do that. I mean, if your inclination is to help other people or to heal or to just listen to other people, then I encourage everybody to just do that to whatever capacity they can or should do that. That's my opinion. But yeah, I think Brandon's work is like incredibly healing and cathartic for so many people. Mine's very bite-sized. You can only write so much on a sticky note, but on an 8.5 inch 11 piece of paper and a pen, you can actually like pour a lot out. And I've seen people be so impacted by the Strangers Project. Um, let's get through some of these questions. All right. Are there, let's see, are there stories that have stuck with you through the years? Asks Keeley.
Yeah, thousands at this point. It's hard to pick individual ones. A lot of the ones that really stick with me are many different topics. What I love is that they resonate for so many different reasons, and different people are going to have different ones that resonate with them. So when I'm curating, when I'm sharing them online, I'm trying to just always show like the widest range of stories possible, because you never know what story is going to resonate with somebody. For me personally, more so than any specific topics, the ones that have stood out to me over the years are ones that have had something unique about either how they were shared or something that happened afterwards. So I'll have a lot of
Mm,
people, like I mentioned earlier, that reach out online after seeing their story posted. I've had people write updates, sometimes years later. That always is super interesting to me.
mm.
But yeah, literally hundreds that stick out. It's hard to pick any one or two.
Have you ever written a story yourself?
I have done it, I think 3 times over the past 10 years. And I always try to, just like I encourage other people to be spontaneous, I've tried to only do it sort of spur of the moment, not think about it too much. To be honest, 2 of them I don't remember what I wrote about.
So in your collection somewhere, there's two that you'll say you'll find someday. You'll be like, this kind of looks like my handwriting. Did I write this?
Yep.
That's
That's actually
awesome.
been a pretty just fun little side thing too, is people tend to eventually, especially people that follow a long time, they'll find their sort of handwriting doppelganger. And
Mm.
it's happened to me and it's happened to others. Like there's only so many handwriting that styles that you can have out there. So it's always really bizarre to sort of find one that looks like you wrote it, but it's from somebody else.
So I want to give a shout out. I'm not sure if she's still in the live stream for Instagram, but I am Coco Van, also as a participatory artist, and the three of us have an evolving collective of participatory art projects. It does the World Letter, which is a really great project. She was just in Africa, encouraging people to write things in public space as a way to say thank you to the world. And she writes, what was your most beautiful moment doing subway therapy or strangers project? So you want to go first?
Yeah, but really quick, you apparently cannot be heard in the
Oh,
Instagram live.
okay. Can people hear me now? Let me know if people cannot hear me. It could be the question sticker that's maybe knocking out my.
Oh yeah.
Can anybody tell me if they can hear me on Instagram Live? People still can't hear. Okay. I wonder why that is. Are my headphones dead? Okay. Can you guys hear me now? I don't know what's going to happen. I think the audio might feedback, but we'll see. Still no.
No.
I don't know why this would be the case. Well, Brandon, you can answer questions.
Then we'll see if we can get it fixed really quick.
Do you want to answer Coco Van's question and then we'll figure out the audio thing later?
Yeah, so Matthew is working on figuring out his audio, and I'm just going to answer that question. Yeah, I am Coco Van is great. Everyone check her out as well. And most beautiful moment, that is hard to choose, thinking of 10 years of moments. This isn't a specific moment, and it happens most times that I go out, but there's usually at least one interaction every time I'm out there where sometimes they'll explicitly tell me it, and sometimes you can just sort of tell, but I get to interact with somebody who just clearly really, really needed to find this space tonight. People will sort of be crying, either happy crying or anything when they turn their story in. A lot of times they'll turn in their story and then ask if they can give me a hug. Those moments of just, for whatever reason it was, seeing somebody that connected with it that just really needed to, those are like the most fulfilling and beautiful moments in the project for me.
I'm going to try and get my audio working. Can you do me a favor? And Jacqueline, why don't you come on and can you ask the question, whatever question it is that you were interested in asking?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So something that I was curious about for both of you was, I know you guys are both basically solo artists. You like started this all on your own. And I was just curious how you dealt with any sort of self-doubt you may have had before you started, because I just know personally when it comes to anything, whether it's creative or anything in my life in general, I have a hard time getting myself to start something if I feel like I may not be dedicated to making it perfect or doing it well or doing anything like that. So how did you, if you had any of those thoughts at all, how did you kind of work through it enough to just like finally bite the bullet and get started?
Good question. Kind of like I was saying before, I really encourage people just to do it. I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but even now for me, 10 years in, I still sometimes have a weird sort of nervous feeling setting up for the first time if I haven't done it in a while. So usually like at the end of winter and I'm going out to set up in the park and I haven't done anything in public in a couple months, it can still feel weird because it's a weird thing to set up a bunch of papers in a park and set up a sign asking people to come and look at what I've made and read what other people are writing. But even if I still feel those nerves after 10 years, within minutes of setting up, people come up and start asking questions and getting excited and reading and writing, and then all that goes away. So I don't like to give too much time to the self-doubt part of it. It's still there, but it's easily alleviated just by doing stuff. It's just easy to get in your own head, I think, when in reality, if you just go do it, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, you fix it or you do something else. But yeah, just really action, I think, is the strongest thing you can do there.
Sorry, I've been distracted by this audio thing. If people can't hear me on Instagram, can you let me know? And then also, should we maybe restart the Instagram Live? Is that a thing that we can do?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Could it be, did your AirPods die? Is that?
No, I had headphones plugged in. Can you tell people on Instagram Live that we're going to stop the stream and start it again?
Yes, Instagram Live, we are going to try restarting it to see if we can get Matthew's audio back.
Can you still hear me?
I can still
Yes.
hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear both of you on Instagram Live right now.
Okay, got it. So
Weird.
we're gonna
Okay.
stop and then
Yeah.
come back.
Okay.
And now. All right. If you guys can be patient, I appreciate it very much. All right, so I should be back. Jackie, if you can tell us if we're on, that would be cool. I should have written in the comments that we were going to come right back.
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
It just says we're having trouble loading this live video.
Weird.
Yeah, hang on. It might, I might have just opened it too soon. Let me see.
Yeah, people are telling me that they can hear me, so I think that's working now.
Oh, yeah.
If I could
You're
guess.
Good. Uh-huh. You're good.
Okay, if you're just tuning in on Instagram or if you were in our stream before and you're back, thanks. We're not going to be talking for too much longer, but we want to get to any questions that people still have. If you can, if you're interested in asking any questions to either Brandon or me, both of us are participatory public artists. We have both transitioned our projects from online to inside, and we're in the Q&A section of our conversation. So down below, there's a question sticker, and you can ask a question to either one of us. Looks like there's some new people in the stream, which is awesome. We were, Jacqueline, can you ask that question again? So that way I can answer it, because I got totally distracted by the Instagram thing.
Yeah, no problem. So what I wanted to ask both of them, which Brandon, thanks for your answer. That's like very helpful in general in life. But since both of you are both independent artists and you started this like entirely by yourself,
Right.
I was just wondering how you dealt with any sort of self-doubt you may have had in the beginning, like before you got started or even during the project, but just like, how do you deal with that feeling of like, maybe this isn't going to work? Should I even start it? How do I, because I feel that way just with anything I do in life. I feel like if I can't do it well, it stops me from like starting, you know? So
for those of you on Instagram Live, I know you probably didn't hear that question, but Jacqueline was essentially asking, how do you go about creating work, especially of this type, when you are going out by yourself and you're doing different things? Like, how do you deal with self-doubt? That's been something that I have, ever since I started going out in public space and doing subway therapy, one really, really great thing has just been people smiling and laughing and being a part of the project. It really eliminated a lot of my self-doubt, because I did something really simple. I just went out, table, 2 chairs. I asked people if they wanted to, or I didn't ask, they just sat down, and, I had this sign that said subway therapy, and people could just sit and have a chat. And through those conversations, it gave me a lot of confidence that I was doing the right thing. And then especially after the election in 2016, when I did my sticky note project, I just wrote "Express Yourself," and then like thousands of people wrote on sticky notes after, a fairly short amount of time. And it really gave me a huge boost of confidence. I already thought that what I was doing was really great, and then it just like pushed it to an unbelievable level. And at least for me, the people, like all the people watching right now, like, you're the inspiration that makes me not feel bad. I still get nervous when I go out. I'll sit there and I'll be nervous and thinking, oh man, like I don't even know what I'm doing right now. And then it ends up being great, because somebody smiles at me or says hi, or we have a conversation, and then it like it makes all the doubt go away. So that's something that I don't know. I just like do stuff, and if people respond well, even if it's a few, like that's enough to keep going. And sometimes then that reaches thousands of people. I'm afraid to use my question sticker on Instagram. I want to look and see, but I don't want our audio to get knocked out. So I'm going to read it instead of putting it up. Brandon Keeley asks, do you have any plans on developing the project more or changing parts of it?
Yeah, so the whole project has been experimental for the past 10 years. And by that, I mean, it's always been about finding what's working and doing more of that, and then trimming away parts that aren't working. So for a long time now, the core of the project has been pretty stable, and that's creating spaces for people to come and discover stories and to share their stories. That's not going to change. I mean, temporarily right now it is, but that's always the core of the project. But I'm always open to exploring different ways to have the community interact with each other, more ways to share these stories. So yeah, it's definitely going to continue growing and changing and evolving, especially during this unusual time.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I've been doing these conversations. This is an example of the way that I've pivoted online, and it's something new that I'm doing. I also want to be able to help artists like Brandon and me and Coco Van, people that are doing participatory projects. And so that's definitely something that I think is really important. And I've been doing that through an entity that I created called Art Plus People, which is a creative community for everyone. So anyone on this call or on Instagram Live can benefit from these conversations. And then it's a support for, hopefully it'll be like a support network um, for anyone that's doing projects in public space, so that, you know, the works that we do are important and they help people. And so anybody that's doing that can benefit from Art Plus People, in my mind. But, you know, this is something I've just started it. And so we're trying to help that out. I'm seeing people in the chat talking about Tiger King a lot. They're talking about the album, not the show. Do you have any thoughts on that? I haven't listened to the album Tiger King.
I have not, so I have no input there.
Let's see, Tiger King album. Who's the artist? All I'm getting is the show when I look it up. Somebody's going to be mad about that, I'm sure. If you guys have any questions for the two of us, feel free to answer. I think we're going to wrap things up because we've been talking for about an hour now. So use the question sticker below, or you can just ask in the comments. We're actually on a Zoom call, which anybody can join tomorrow. Yeah. Do you want to let people know where they can find you? How can they follow you? How can they participate in your projects?
Absolutely. Instagram is where I'm most active. So I post stories every day here, always something new to read. And that's where I'll be sharing a bunch of these new experiments that we've been talking about. There's also strangersproject.com, which is a great place I post the stories there as well. And then also have a lot of just history about the project and photos and videos. And so a lot of just extra info there. Also on Facebook and Twitter, but I use those less often. And there's definitely going to be a lot of interactive things coming up. So there's already thousands of stories to read. That's been the case for the entirety of the project, and I'll continue to share stories. And then I'm also going to be finding lots of other interactive ways for people to get involved.
Cool. I've put a comment. Hopefully my audio didn't die, which I think it might have, because it did the same thing it did last time when it died. I put a pinned comment with strangersproject.com. That's where you can go to find a lot of different stories and content. I highly recommend checking it out. And if people want to check out my stuff, we can wrap up now. If you want to check out my stuff, you can go to @SubwayTherapy on Instagram, hosting the call, so you probably already know about it. And then if you want to check out some of my new stuff, go to artpluspeople.com. There's a bunch of fun stuff there. Also, this is something that I soft launched not too long ago, but if you go to sociallydistant.us, I started a call-in listening project where people that are experiencing things related to COVID-19 can call in and you can share your experiences. You can share moments. Dang, the sound did go out again. Shoot. You could check that out. Oh man, this audio thing's driving me nuts. I think it's
He's
if I type.
just lamenting about the audio now. We know it went out.
I
Just
think
for
yours went
everyone
out
still
too.
listening.
We're gonna have to figure out this audio situation. I don't exactly know what's going on, but anywho, why don't we stop here because people can't hear us
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, Brandon's is still okay. Everyone have an awesome rest of the day, and Brandon, thanks so much for being here. It's been a really wonderful, I don't know how to describe it. It's just been wonderful to know you and to have somebody who does the work that I do that's similar. It's just been such a pleasure to be your friend and colleague. And so thanks for coming on the call today.
Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun. We'll do another one.
Yeah, that would be great. Everybody stay happy, stay healthy, take care of yourself, and we'll be back tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.